Hey everybody, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
And you're watching In Depth
on Now You Know.
As always, we want to cover the Tesla earnings call and quarterly report because there's a lot of great information you can parse out of that. So we're going to start with the Tesla letter. It's full of cool information. Instead of going through the whole thing, though, I kind of pulled out some things that kind of caught my attention and your attention. I think we'll just kind of go through that first. All right, so the first thing that caught me was that Elon said this: after achieving a production rate of 5,000 per week, we will begin offering the new options such as all-wheel drive and the base model with standard size battery pack. Why is that a big deal? Because we hope that they will hit that probably at the end of June, and that means that you guys who are waiting for the other options on the car should be getting those soon after. So I thought that was important to point out. So in the letter, they pointed out that automation is only half the story. Higher levels of automation have been enabled by a dramatic simplification of product design. Our Model 3 general assembly line consists of fewer than 50 steps, which is about 70% less than conventional assembly lines. All Model 3 vehicles use only one standard body frame, down from more than 80 for Model S, a wiring harness that has 50% less mass than average vehicles, and a fraction of the number of controllers, connectors, and CPUs.
Wow.
Yeah, this is stuff that doesn't get talked about much, and no one on the earnings call wanted to talk about it, but I think it's pretty important. Also, Elon mentioned on the earnings call and in the letter that they are significantly reducing the cobalt content of the battery. So they are using a nickel cobalt aluminum battery in the cathode, which is an 8:1 ratio, and he thinks that they can get the cobalt down to practically nothing pretty soon. That's one of the biggest complaints about lithium-ion batteries is that you need cobalt, which generally gets sourced from the Congo and places like that. So if they can get the cobalt practically out of the battery almost altogether, that's going to be a huge benefit for the environment and for people. Get this, there's only 20 locations in the world that are showing the Model 3. And yet they have 450,000 people on the list at the end of Q1 waiting for the Model 3.
Yeah.
They're going to significantly improve the number of places that show off the Model 3. And as more and more people are getting their cars and showing them off their friends, I can only imagine how that's going to increase demand. And did you know that customer satisfaction rates at the end of Q1 were at an average of 98%?
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, these are, again, figures that don't get talked about much, but that's pretty impressive. Now, we talk about the cars all the time, but also Tesla makes batteries, and they continue to aim for a threefold increase in megawatt hours deployed for our energy storage process this year. In Q1, energy storage deployments grew 161% from Q4 of 2017 to 373 megawatt hours. They are chugging out the batteries.
That is great.
They deployed a record number of residential Powerwall systems in Q1. In spite of the significant growth of Powerwall deliveries, their backlog in Q1 continued to grow. And they deployed 76 megawatts of solar energy generation systems in Q1. Cash and loan system sales made up 66% of the residential deployments, which is up from 31% in Q1 of 2017 and 9% in Q1 of 2016. Well, what does this mean? Let's parse this out. Normally, they used to be selling a lot of solar systems that were power purchase agreements, which means that Tesla would foot the bill and then get money on the back end. Now they're selling much more systems that they're getting money up front for. So they had slightly positive cash flow through 2017, and they're expecting cash flow from solar business to remain at this level for the first half of 2018 and then improve significantly thereafter. So everyone who talked about when they got Solar City on the books, oh my gosh, this is just going to be debt. Well, they're actually showing that they've turned that around and it's actually cash flow positive. All right, so now we're going to get on to what happened during the conference call itself.
Yeah, what happened during the conference call? Oh my goodness. Okay, I didn't listen to the conference call, but I read all of the articles about it, and apparently
That's your problem.
Elon threw a big tantrum, a big fit. He got really mad. He was lying on the floor and he was going, ah! That's what he was doing. That's what I heard. That's what I read.
Well, so I listened to the whole conference call
twice
and took notes. And no, he did get angry at one point in the conference call, but I think rightfully so. And I think the media picked up on it and did what they typically do, which is to try and twist it into a story. But
but the Tesla stock dropped like 7%.
Yeah, well, he basically shut down a couple analysts who wanted to talk, and he let a YouTuber bring questions forth. And that YouTuber, we'd like to think is a friend of ours, Galileo Russell. He has a great channel called Hyperchange, and he had petitioned Tesla to get in on the conference call, had a bunch of people, including us, write emails to the investor relations people, and got to ask some questions. Now, normally you get a question and a follow-up. Galileo asked his question and a follow-up, and then Elon loved his questions so much that he got to ask more and more questions. In fact, he got about 20 minutes of the conference call, all were his questions. Elon really loved them. And so, you'll see what happened. Let's just go through it.
Okay.
So Elon starts off usually the conference call giving 5 minutes or more of what he, kind of the highlights. And he said one of the things he's most excited about is the rapid increase of the output to 3,000 packs per week, sustained at Giga, 5,000 at peak. Attained. And the cool thing is, he says a month or two of tweaking, and they should be able to have 5,000 plus sustained rate, which will happen with very little CapEx. And CapEx means capital expenditure. And normally to increase something, you've got to buy a lot of robots. Well, they've already bought all their robots. So basically, with very little expenditure, they'll be able to get that level.
Yep.
They've simplified the production line. They've engaged their associates in soliciting ideas and implementing them. So basically asking workers, hey, do you have a better way of doing this? And they've had lots of great ideas.
Wow.
They've changed part design to improve manufacturing. And that's another cool thing about Tesla. Because they make many of the parts themselves and they design them in-house, when they come up with a better way to do something, they can quickly put a new part into the line. Elon's found that some things are better suited to manual operation, and he gave the example of the Fluff Bot.
What's a Fluff Bot?
Well, so they were putting this piece of insulation on top of the battery pack that he called fluff. Basically, they thought it would keep the sound down. First of all, they found out they don't need it. It doesn't make any effect on the sound. But secondly, they found that when this robot was putting this piece of fluff onto the battery pack, many times, because it's hard to hold, it's made of this fluffy material, it wouldn't hold it quite right. It would misalign it. They'd have to stop the line, fix it. They quickly realized, you know what? A, we don't need it, but B, if we need to do something like this, better to have a human do it, because humans are very good at arranging things like that. So they learned the hard way that sometimes over-automating is not the way to go. He pointed out that they had been overgeneralizing the design. So they had their current battery pack has a front hole with a blank plate in it, so that they could use it for both the rear-wheel drive car and the front-wheel drive car, in the all-wheel drive car. And they found out that why do it that way? Because then you have to put a blank plate in there. So they changed that design so that now they make a battery pack just for the rear-wheel drive car. You no longer have to put that plate in there. So they went from 7 hours to make a pack 3 weeks ago to under 17 minutes now.
Wow.
They are slightly ahead in the battery module and pack production than expected, and he's confident that they'll see 3,000 per week soon at Fremont. The body shop is already able to do 3,000 a week. General Assembly should be able to hit 3,000 a week soon by removing a few automated processes, and he's praising the people. He feels really good about their staff. He wanted to point out that the Model 3 market share versus their competitors is probably soon going to be the best-selling sedan in the U.S. in their category. So mid-sized sedans in that price range, which would be things like the Camry. And so very soon they're going to actually be bumping those cars off of the list.
And this is not just electric
No, we're
mid-size
talking
sedans.
He's talking ice
all
cars.
sedans.
Right,
Wow.
all sedans.
Okay.
Right. Elon was confident about GAAP income and positive cash flow in Q3. They've done a lot of reorganization and restructuring this month to achieve that goal. And a lot of third-party companies, which he called barnacles on barnacles, there's going to be a lot of barnacle removal.
So he's going to get rid of a lot of third-party contractors and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I guess a lot of consultants and suppliers who aren't doing what they should be doing, or people who work for suppliers who aren't really making the product. Basically, they're going to start digging deep and getting rid of those people. And then here's where Elon mentioned that they can probably reduce cobalt in the battery to almost nothing.
Wow.
And that's using they're just finding ways to, I guess, change that cathode so that they don't need it. Adam Jones from Morgan Stanley asked Elon, well, now's a good time to raise capital, right? Because you don't need it. And so if you don't need to raise capital, now's the time to raise it. And Elon said that he did not agree with that at all. He basically said he did not want to raise capital, and he did not believe that you should raise it if you don't need it. He was also asked about SpaceX. SpaceX is going to be releasing satellites into low Earth orbit that will be creating this internet. And so the question was, won't this help Tesla because you'll be able to use that network? And Elon said maybe, but that's about 3 years away from now. So he's not really thinking of it at the moment. I thought it was going to be sooner than that too. So this is kind of a glimpse at a SpaceX question that got answered. All right, here's where we're getting into what you talked about earlier about Elon getting upset.
His tantrum.
His tantrum.
His temper tantrum. He was so mad, like a little kid in a grocery store, just yelling away on the floor, right?
Well, so analyst Tony Sacconaggi from Bernstein asked this question. Now, don't forget that Bernstein is a short seller of Tesla stock. Elon knows this. It was a follow-up question about CapEx and about the company's capital requirements. And basically Musk complained that the questions were not cool, and he called for the next caller. So Elon addressed this after the fact. He said, the two questioners I ignored on the Q1 call are sell-side analysts who represent a short seller thesis, not investors. So the analysts in question were Joseph Spack from RBC Capital and Tony Sacconaggi from Bernstein. And he said the reason the Bernstein question about CapEx was boneheaded was that it had already been answered in the headline of the Q1 newsletter he received beforehand, along with details in the body of the letter. And the reason the RBC question about Model 3 demand is absurd is that Tesla has roughly 500,000 reservations despite no advertising and no cars in showrooms. But as you mentioned, Tesla stock then tumbled 5.6%, and I'm guessing this is because Wall Street doesn't like it when CEOs basically yell at them
and tell them that their questions were dumb. But now if we look at the stock, we can see that it is recovered. It didn't continue to fall and plummet.
Right, because it fell for no reason.
And everyone uses free fall. Oh, the stock's in free fall right now. All those short sellers. Holy moly.
And this is a little trick for you guys out there. You watched deep into this in depth, so I think you owe this to yourselves. If you want a good time to buy Tesla stock, many times it is on these days.
Right.
And that is because by the time you get home and you get the news, you're probably going to miss out and you're not going to know, oh, it tumbled today. I shouldn't buy it today. There's some reason.
Right.
There was no reason. If you had been listening to the earnings call and then seen the tumble the next day, you would have known that was a perfectly great time to snatch up some stock and save yourself some money.
Right. Save yourself 5%. It's 5% sale.
Right. 5% off Tesla sale.
5% off.
He said that he wanted to go to YouTube for a question, and this is where we get into our friend Galileo Russell, who's on Hyperchange. He had lobbied the Tesla investor relations people, along with our emails supporting him, saying, can you get me in on the call? Elon had responded on Twitter saying, okay. And so then we went to Galileo for his questions. And just before that, Elon had said, these questions are so dry, they're killing me. So then Galileo asked Elon about Waymo and whether there's going to be an update on the Tesla network. And Elon said, oh, finally, an interesting question. Galileo asked questions about Tesla, which show that he understands the far-reaching, far-looking impact of the company, not just the quarterly numbers.
Right.
Which is, I think, what Elon loves about thinking about the future, right? He doesn't like just looking at what's happening this quarter.
Right.
So this is why it was refreshing, and this is why the questions kept coming and kept, he just kept wanting to hear more and more questions. Follow-up question to that was, well, can you give us an idea of when this will happen? And Elon said, the big hurdle here is not really the technology. It is the regulatory approval. And he said the problem here is that the accident rate is not going to be brought to zero. Right? We already have 1.2 million automotive deaths per year, and that any autonomous death is going to be headline news. And the problem is that anytime you have a death, that is going to be brought up by the media, and then regulators are going to be affected by that. So even if you could get the deaths down to 1 in 10, there's still going to be plenty of deaths caused by, involving an autonomous car.
Yep.
And that means that regulators are going to respond to public pressure and the press. And so this is the challenge. He said it's incredibly irresponsible for journalists to report that autonomy is unsafe. That is not what's
not
unsafe.
true.
Right, it's not true. It's way safer. It's going to be way safer than humans. So from this technical standpoint, they're going to be ready by the end of next year. Russell asked, where are you going to be able to make this Model Y car, which is going to be coming out next year? And first of all, Elon said, well, first of all, it's early 2020 is the more likely prospect for when we're going to be making it. So that's news.
That's news, yeah.
Because we had been talking about maybe November of 2019. So that seems like it's more likely to be early 2020. He said, we're jammed to the gills at Fremont. So it's definitely not going to be made here. And so that was kind of news to me, that basically Elon didn't want to reveal to us or doesn't know where the Model Y is going to be built yet. My guess is that it's going to be built in a Giga-like factory, so either in the Gigafactory or a new factory, because Elon said that from now on, all factories they build are going to contain basically battery production and vehicle production. And so then Russell went on to say that he heard, from Daimler's CEO that the specs for the semi-truck are impossible to make, that it defies the laws of physics. And Elon said, well, he doesn't know much about physics, and I know him. Elon said, I've majored in physics, and that basically even if we don't improve our battery technology at all, we can do 500 miles. And in fact, we're going to beat 500 miles. Then JB Straubel backed him up and said, basically, we're not even going to do anything new to the semi-truck in terms of technology. And then Elon followed up and said, the actual production unit will be about 600 miles of range.
Yeah. So wait a minute, that's going to be our truck.
That's going to be our truck.
We're going to have 600 miles of range, fully loaded. Mm-hmm. Fully loaded. Mm-hmm. We could drive from here to Cleveland.
Yep.
Where is the city 600 miles from here? Should we find one?
Brent and Bobby, show us a city that's 600 miles from here and just put us driving there.
Okay.
Russell asked Elon if he would open the superchargers to other manufacturers, and Elon said, "We're happy to support other manufacturers if they pay their fair share, but no other car manufacturers have wanted to do this so far." And then Russell said, "Well, what's the strategy here? Why would you ever open it up from a shareholder point of view? Isn't that a moat that you now have? And if you open that moat, then you're just letting other competitors in." And Elon said, "I think moats are lame. They are quaint in a vestigial way. If your only defense is a moat, you're going to be defeated pretty shortly." He says the pace of innovation is the determinant. If the rate of innovation is faster, then you will win. So basically, he was saying that Tesla's rate of innovation is every 2 to 3 years they come out with something new, whereas their competitors maybe every 6 years. So whichever company has the highest rate of innovation will basically win. And then this is something you'll hear about tomorrow in Tesla Time News, but Warren Buffett had something to say about this.
Because he likes moats.
He does like moats.
He's a connoisseur of moats.
Yes. Another question from Hyperchange was megachargers. Is there a revenue stream? Are you planning on making money off these megachargers for your semi-trucks? Elon said, "We haven't talked about any of that."
Wow.
JB
really?
said, "The only reason we want this to just be a seamless system for trucks, they are not looking at it from a point of view of making money off of it." Then the question came up about the lawsuit. Nikola One has a lawsuit against Tesla for the design of their truck. And Elon said, "Look, I wanted the Semi to be cool and sexy just because I wanted it that way." He said, "But that's not what's going to sell the truck. What's going to sell the truck are the numbers,
Yep.
the range, the price, the reduction in costs for maintenance and so forth." He said, so this is a complete joke. He thinks that, he says it's a laughable lawsuit from Nikola. He said that fate loves irony and nobody's buying them because of their looks. Kind of an interesting little thing that happened when the question got turned to Tesla Energy. Elon said there's going to be a gigawatt-hour scale announcement within a matter of months. So you remember that in South Australia, they installed a 129 megawatt-hour system. That's the largest that's ever been installed. He's now saying that within a few months, we're going to be hearing about a gigawatt-hour scale system.
Wow. You could run 1 million hair dryers for an hour.
Question came up about semi-truck reservations in production, and Elon said, "I don't know how many, probably around 2,000. We haven't put much into a sales effort on that." What they have put a lot of effort into is, he says, it's high time we became profitable. He said, because you're not a real company until you are profitable, and that's their focus right now. He said the Model Y is going to be amazing, and he's really excited about that. The Tesla pickup is going to be great, and we have way more cool things than we know what to do. He then said that we'll be announcing a location of the China Gigafactory soon, and in all Gigafactories, they'll include vehicle production and battery production. Then they went back to regular analysts. They were much more, I thought, polite, maybe because they didn't want to get kicked off the call.
Yeah.
And one of them said, "Will you let us know when you get to 3,000 Model 3s a week?" And Elon said, "Well, first of all, most people are tracking that already, and you're probably going to know soon after." And he said, "Also, I don't think it matters. I'm looking long-term at the stock price, and you should be focused on long-term things. We have no interest in the interests of day traders. Do not buy Tesla stock if volatility scares you." And I thought this was wonderful. He's like, we're not interested in the day-to-day things. We're interested in the bigger picture, the long term.
Yeah.
So day traders, you've been warned.
And that is why Tesla is such a long-haul company. If you are thinking about buying stock in Tesla, you're not buying it because you think it's going to go up in a week. Right now, especially right now, it's not going to be, skyrocketing up. Even if they hit their numbers, it's going to probably be pretty stable. It's only when, we start talking about all these new, interesting, exciting things that are going to be happening in the next few years that the stock price is really, I think, going to skyrocket.
I agree. And I really want to give a huge shout out to Galileo Russell, because in just the course of a week, he got himself in on the call. He represented us, the shareholders. He asked questions that were long-term. He got Elon to actually start talking about things and opening up and just being relaxed. And that's what you want on this call. Unlike any other call, I know most of you probably don't listen to other calls, but if you want to, just try it sometime. Listen to like GM or some other company, and you're going to hear just a lot of boring mumbo-jumbo numbers that after the call, you're going to not know anything new. On these calls, the reason why they're so reported and so listened to is because you're hearing a visionary talk about his vision. Now, would you rather that visionary talk to you about some numbers that he already put in his Q1 letter, or would you like him to talk about his long-term vision and his, questions about autopilot and semi-trucks? That's what I want to hear. So again, thank you so much, Galileo, for getting Elon to relax and to answer these fantastic questions. You did a fantastic job. We support you, and we'd love to have you on all future calls. So Elon, if you're listening, please, that was awesome. Have Galileo back.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for watching so much. You make this channel amazing. Jesse and I are going to be up in Montreal on May 12th, which is this Saturday coming up. We would love to see you there. We're going to be bringing the Model 3, showing it off, because a lot of people up in there in Canada have not really gotten their hands on one yet. So we're going to be doing some test rides. So go to the link below, which we're being hosted by Avoto, which is an amazing car rental service up in Montreal. They have Tesla cars. They're going to be getting the Model 3 as well, by the way.
Awesome.
So they're going to be hosting us. If you go to their event page, you can sign up for our test rides. We're going to have a couple test ride periods during the day. Get in on that soon, because I think they're going to fill up pretty quick. We would love to meet you, talk to you, answer questions, get to hear your stories, and it's just going to be an all-around fun day. So that's May 12th, Saturday, up in Montreal. Go check out that event. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching, and now you know.